Hey, this is Misery Loves Company, a weekly social reading series hosted by Misery Tourism. Uh, every Friday, we welcome outsider and transgressive writers to come and share their work. So this is a special one for two reasons. First of all, it's the first Misery Loves Company of 2022. Holy fucking shit. Hopefully this year will be less absolutely miserable and painful than the last two. Uh, we'll see. But secondly, and on a less, on a more serious note, today is January 7th, which is the 50th anniversary of the day that the poet John Berryman committed suicide by leaping to his death off of the Washington Avenue Bridge in Minneapolis. And with that in mind, today on Misery Tourism, we published a series of tributes to Berryman, who is one of my all-time favorite poets, one of the people who actually gave me a love of poetry, right? Like before I read the Dream Songs, I can't say that I had any particular love or affection for poetry. And it was just a really transformative experience for me. And I know that's true of a few others here as well. So anyway, we want to kind of open up tonight with a little tribute to Berryman. And I think, Adam, are you with us? I think Adam Johnson is going to start this one off. Adam may be having technical difficulties. He's doing this one on location. Is Adam actually still in the chat, or did Adam drop?
Disappeared.
It's been a night of technical difficulties of all varieties. We got hit pretty hard by trolls earlier. I'll give Adam a couple of minutes to resurface. And if he doesn't resurface, what I'll do is, Jesse, you can read your piece. And maybe by the time that you finished, Adam will be back.
Yep.
Actually, you know what, Jesse? Why don't you
Sure.
Why don't you get us started?
Okay. Oh, can you provide the link?
Sure, absolutely.
It was on today's Misery Tourism, and it's just a short poem. It's written in imitation of John Berryman's Dream Songs, which he published several books of, and that's considered to be his major work. It's usually in 3 stanzas, and there's a lot of interesting lingo and stuff. Anyway, I'll start reading. One thing you should know is that often, if you haven't read John Berryman, he talks a lot about Henry. Henry's sort of like his alter ego. So in my poem, I use Archie because that would be like my alter ego because it's a family name. So here we go. Okay, imitation of John Berryman's Dream Songs. Bleak as Jarndyce nights have to me grown. To boil, Archie waits for his watched pot. Mailbag elevators vertically march, lift me up to let me down. Never is it Cressid's 5-finger knot, a noose more like. That's mad grim Arch. Upon Archie, each woman behaves as enzymes on the substrate and, for some final soul of his, prepares, discarding like some poor poker hand. A powerful bad ace of hearts I has, a message comes at me from somewheres. Archie wants to dodge the Ginsburg tax and huddle sheltered darlings off to Zyder Z. Pal, don't throw in some thirsty, hopeful figure for to make friends, mothers, and nuns relax. My thesaurus might call the shrink on me for looking up better words, sadder, bigger.
That was tremendous, Jesse. I love what you've done here because you've perfectly captured, I think, the structure of John Berryman's poems. Like the kind of And you mentioned this actually, like I believe in the email that you sent me, but like the intricate like inner rhyme scheme that exists in some of his pieces, and also just like that, the perfect like rhythm and structure of one of his poems. And yeah, it's fantastic. And I think also um Adam just returned.
Yes, get to Adam. He's dying.
Hopefully not yet. Adam, are you with us now?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
So Adam, do you want to explain where you're at?
I will. I'm on the Washington Avenue Bridge, 5 degrees. And I'm just going to read my piece. This visual is a sketch that Jesse made. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. I'm just going to read the piece without reading the title. Mississippi City. There are bodies in it, ghosts, flicker spirits, smiley face victims.
Adam, I hate to interrupt you. I know I said I could hear you okay, and we could, but once you started reading the poem, you cut out.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, clearly now.
Okay. The Mississippi runs through the city. There are bodies in it, ghosts, flicker spirits, smiley face victims illumined in star pages, suicide cases, old journals tipped just right, broken eyes in the thick mud, 35W bridge soles, and just downriver the John Berryman Bridge, wiry shards, spectral flashes, magnetic time waves. The college kids still toss their shoes into the tree right by where Berryman did his leap. Bone says, not so leap just right though, water waves of dust crypts, he says, time songs and lamplight, wait, but don't wait. The haunted water moves, but moves never does it. Mississippi though, one Mississippi two. One ISSIPPI, who though sees eyes, 3 eyes. 4 eyes breathed, sliding history tracks, linoleum top. So, why not so, Bones, says even Bones, a personality split right through. Well, he'd just be some kind of flim-flam cadaverous human being in the right decade capsule. Have you seen him? I ain't. Have you? Aye. Fancy you a Biersko Devte. Not so. Well, partial admittance of a certain reckoning of character, but only viewed from a certain angle of sorts, Bones. Don't you get that look? Haunted water, Bones. Tricked magflies, surface springs, a real whodunit. Not really, though, dust crypts, as I said. Dreamscapes and underwater death masks, but only for the nobility, as we calls it. Even if he be holding dead plants in his funeral hands and silent through time, not laughing like the style. So he was tricked in his gizzards? Nah, it was his dad who done him in. A classic case, Bones. Not directly and such. One second here. Jaws of time, cramped cabins of the mind. And don't you go a looking, ain't no lamp to rub in those waves. It just be silence and the weeds down there. So I'm actually gonna probably go dark. I'm gonna leave this candle and I'm gonna leave Jesse's frame here on the bridge, but I'm gonna sign off. I'll still listen.
Adam, that was beautiful. Someone in the chat said this is sacred, and I agree. This is tremendous. Berryman, I already said as a poet, meant a huge amount to me. And seeing that, I said to you before, I wish I could be out there, on the bridge with you today, because it seems like, I don't know. So, 50 years, I don't know. I'm speechless. That was powerful, Adam, and yeah, a real tribute to a tremendous poet. Yeah, but so I know usually when I read, I basically wait until the end to see if there's time, but I did write, I wrote a piece as well, in commemoration of the day and in tribute to Berryman. And I think I'll do my best to try to read them now. I've asked Rudy to help me with these. One of the conceits of Berryman's poetry that I don't think that Jesse or Adam mentioned is that it's kind of sections of it are based on like minstrelsy, on blackface minstrelsy, and there's a conceit in minstrel shows where you'll have two characters placed on either edge of the stage, kind of talking to each other, exchanging jokes and exchanging banter. And Berryman uses this conceit like really effectively in his poetry, where there'll be this other character basically who will kind of drop in to interrogate Henry. And Tambo and Bones are the traditional like minstrel caricatures, and they're named after the instruments that they use. Tambo has a tambourine, and Bones has the bones. He plays the bones. And so anyway, presumably in Berryman's writing, this other character is Tambo because he always calls Henry the Berryman stand-in Bones. So I'm just saying that basically I wanted to get a sense when I read this of there being multiple voices here and of that minstrelsy thing. So Rudy, are you with us?
I'm here, and just not to interrupt, but Blick wants to be let in. I think he's in the lobby.
Oh, you'll have to ask him what his name is. All I see is Calvin Attlewood in the lobby right now. If you could ask him what his maybe he's Mac user. I'll let Mac user in.
I think is it Atwood?
Calvin Atwood, yeah.
I think that's legit. I think he.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let him in too. Okay, so hopefully the trolls have passed. So Rudy's going to help me read these. They don't do justice to Berryman, but anyway, we're going to give it a shot. Did I put it in the chat? I did. Okay. All right.
Oh, yeah.
So these are 4 short poems in imitation of Berryman, 4 counterfeit dream songs. Okay. 1. I was looking at the wrong document. 1. Henry's hairs are not, as far as he fathomed, contrary to his suspicions, falling out. He has tallied them, Jew-like.
Who like? Good golly bones, you transgress.
Before the glass, poured through, pawed to, and there may have been some slight recession in the time between recessions, but no, none gone. Even as less tangible things, love, friendship, purpose, solvency, fall away. Enough me, let's square, one hopeless hank to another, and in neither case are real names even. My parents calling me that because Bill was my father's name, and you taking the name because your father, whose name you also shared once, Junior, couldn't handle the bills, the exiting wife, and exited life thus. Henry being the ugliest name that your female friend could fathom, and that ugliness being right in my middle. So we're simpatico, see?
No, Bones. I can't. Who you?
Apologies, I'm nobody. A black boy, unblacked, unboy, understand now why I'm mirror-bound, spiteful, daring every one of those thin bastards to jump. Okay, the second one, just trying to let people in between you. Second one. What did Dostoevsky see when seized his body with Urs divine? Not
letting people in. His
fuck.
name is William Duriak. Make sure you put like a real
Fuck. I thought
name.
you were legit, buddy. Okay, goodbye. Okay, not letting anyone else in. Sorry about that. Okay, number 2 over again. Poor Berryman rolling in his watery
Rip.
grave. Okay, number 2. What did Dostoevsky see when seized his body with Urs divine, not understood then as now to be brain damage, drink, and little else, except maybe God? But wait. Heretic Henry bears the cross that bore, now boring, like your poem, anthologized always on that subject, with the dog gone poof away. So that's your legacy, Christ, and forgiveness, absolution. Nah. But at night, not quite dreaming, I don't quite see a landscape unseen, even with eyes soon shut, where there's a sword in that rock, upon the rock, pull, dull. My tower's silence, the vultures shunned, this meat unclean.
Baptism.
Not in that water, Mr. Bones, no, you missed the boat. Okay, number 3. Cold, yes, and colder still, alone.
0.
No, below, here below. And you, Henry, being up or down or not. So I do think sometimes about going out, sans hat, mittens, overcoat, uncovered, and all this of fantasy under covers, into that world, cold, cold, as they sing, as I have already ad nauseum said. And you know the chorus, freeze.
The death.
Lord willing, Bones, Lord willing, how's the weather up there? And she,
You do forget yourself. Your manners. Mannered. Man. Heard.
all right, he gone, Bones, he gone forever. This time, though not last or the one before, and the pussycat Bones too. And I could just cry, cry, cry till them tears freeze out there in that world, which, as I said, cold. And then I, too, cold, colder, warm, coldest. Okay. This is the last one, and then I'm done. In the winter, after the fall, after his fall, gunshot, dead, below your childhood window, exiled from your world of fall, a line which, may I say, and why not, what harm can come from flattering the dead, in terms of your embarrassment or mine, so moved me, you fell, jumped off that bridge in the cold water there, vicious icy, I imagine, unfit to drown cat or coon or crow, Jim.
I weren't no coon on that day, nor damp pussycat. I was a man then. Only. Was.
And why do yourself undone like that, buried man, a day after the Epiphany?
No, not a day. I first had the thought many years before.
And the audience, pale-faced, so silent now.
Safe.
Oh, sorry.
Bones.
No, dry. Let me finally, H.H. Bones, quote you once again from number 25 and just say, before the curtain, I said the word before, and you, beyond the curtain, are, and knowing you saved me from what you, having not you, and only you, did. Thank you for everything. All right, that's it. And that kind of concludes our Berryman tribute here. I hope we didn't do a disservice to the memory of one of the greatest poets ever. But anyway,
I just want to mention before we wrap it up, Jesse, I think is actually the only one who's actually cosplaying as John Berryman today, and that is special. I feel we have the spirit and the cosplay body of the man here today. So
All right. Only I still smoked.
yeah. And you need a little more gray in your beard, though.
It's pretty long in some of his pictures. It's like down to
later Berryman, he's got almost a Santa Claus thing going on. May he rest in peace.
Rip.
So F's in the chat for the greatest confessional poet of all time, I guess. And Keko is up next.
Hi. Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Okay, I got a new camera. I
Yeah,
put it
looks
on my
good.
wife's. Yeah, I put it on my wife's laptop, so now I don't have to transfer it.
Yeah, you sound perfect.
Okay, great. So, okay, just two things before we start. I'll be reading all the proper nouns probably in my accent, my original natural accent, because I feel it would seem a bit fake if I would try to mimic the English accent or the original, sorry, the original accent. And another thing is that all of these poems are mostly about Orientalism, or even more about self-Orientalism. That's a theme I like. So I'll start reading it. And sorry, I didn't expect to be this soon. And yeah, okay. So the first one is called Content Warning. And the footnote says no content for you, fuck you. And the second one is if you mention Carver in your poem, you're an idiot, a basic bitch, and when you say Sexton, you are nothing but a cringy person of pronouns. While you sing of Mayakovsky with your bourgeois voice trembling like an old man on crutches on the wind, that takes you to all kinds of places, Kaminalhuyu, Kilimanjaro, you talk to the natives as an equal, but also with a humbling respect about Carver, because you finally found that one native who possesses a surprising and inspiring knowledge of Russian poetry. You drink a potion which makes you a citizen of the world. They call it mastika. You write it down in your notes and remember Bukovsky and Yesenin. Who would win? Because they would obviously get into a fight. Then they would weep together. Look at them now, these writings, of a weakling in the fruit of mutual considerations. You're back home. A streetcar passes by. Smog and Chet Baker is summoned to your verse. Smoking in silence, synesthesia. And the third one is called I thought I was missing out, and now the world knows I am. There is a view that anyone who's looking to entertain themselves peacefully eventually becomes dull and restless. But that comes from people who are against the courtship of nature, while imagining themselves as other forms. There is a wisdom not of thought, but of craft, in phrases, and there was this writer from my region who moved abroad. At autumn morning, that's not my cup of tea, but the crop's sunbathing. When offered tea, he would say that that's not his cup of coffee. Big grins surrounding his peaceful grimace. I was jealous of him as a kid, with his city being bombed, not just symbolically like mine, but still I never wished for my mother to be raped by the aggressor. I wish I had cattle and that I were a dairy farmer, providing neighborhood stories with a good trade. And this one is called This Is Not a Poem, and it also has a footnote. So footnote is footnotes in fiction when you're dead, footnotes in poetry, not even then. This seems lame, so I'll break it into lines, but I'll read it without pause because it's prose. Yeah, baby. In poetry's clothing, you and I, we're bros. So the conversation begins about the family, explaining everything. I'm a monologue being recorded, and you ask, how can I have Joze and Cleme and Jana and Marco, Zorka and Domingo corresponding so perfectly in one stanza? I tell you there's a twist while being recorded. You nod in a Nostradamic manner. She supposedly met Rilke, reading a book in a snowy night. Flakes on Iskra's face turn into a phantasmagoria of tears. Can't you see, you say, you've got a whole layer of Reiner right there. I am being recorded, which isn't helpful as this isn't a monologue anymore. I insist, bureaucrats of Rizal will blow you. Put a fucking footnote. The recording ends. We quarrel. My brother loves me in a way that deserved a punch in the face. He said we're not friends anymore, so we hugged, drowning into our destiny, taking comfort from the vastness of the family and the purity of our principles. My hand betrays me with these exact words. Better a fellow than a pyramid sale. And the last one is your grandmother, not mine. There was this beautiful plant where I grew in the summer, green, green, green. I didn't know its name, green, and it was gray, gray. That moment when magic was comforting and safe. I called it Serchika. I'm calling it now. Fuck your Duolingo. Fuck it from the heart. I'm ready to fight. That's it.
These kick ass. This is a really diverse selection, by the way. Like, you're really ping-ponging around through a bunch of different themes and like stylistic tricks and shit in this batch. This is really fucking good. I love the thing that had my jaw on the floor is the moment where in This Is Not a Poem, where you like live up to the promise and the poem just fucking breaks, and there's this lump of prose that breaks out during the fist fight. That's really, really cool. And the way that you formatted that and the way that it like delivers on the promise of the title, and you kind of play with, oh, it's not really a poem because this is basically prose breaking into lines, and at the beginning you're okay, I get the conceit there, but then no, the poem actually fucking falls apart, and that's so good. That's so good. And just a lot of these are, the first one, the content warning one, is fucking is hilarious and obviously very much in keeping with my biases. And I don't know, there are, I think someone in the chat said shots fired, because there are a lot of like really like wonderfully like sardonic and confrontational pieces here too. Altogether, it's a really great fucking batch. Thank you, man.
Thanks. I wrote most of them a couple of years ago, and I was mostly when I realized, because I didn't know what the situation was really in the literary community back then. So when I realized there was just a lot of sketchy, I don't know, it was like a minefield, and then I just didn't want to read them and basically submit them anywhere. So yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I hear that.
Thanks.
I hear that. Thank you so much for sharing those. Blick is up next. Hey, Blick, sorry you had some trouble getting in. We had a real run of trolls at the beginning, and I wasn't sure which accounts were legitimate and which weren't, and yours didn't say your name, so it took me a while to figure it out, but you're in now, so.
So I love hearing the trolls, so I'm sorry that I missed that. That's the only time I've ever heard them was on here. All right, I'm going to do a poem that was published last week. I think I sent you the link, right? You have the link? Because it's also, I did a FAQRS with Alfred Steiglitz.
Just put it in the
On-
chat.
in- Okay. In November, I found out that I read an article that Brian Eno, I don't know how many people know who he is, but Brian Eno took a piss in Marcel Duchamp's fountain, you know? And so for some reason through the whole holiday season, I was obsessed with writing this poem that kept getting longer and longer. And I like Christmas. You can't see it, but I have my coral pink tree blinking and I have all the lights on up here. But I thought it was kind of weird that I'm obsessed with a dead fly in urine for the Christmas season, you know? So I was trying to incorporate that into the holiday cheer. I sent it to Unity, and Unity said, reminded him of, I believe he said John Donne's Flea. And that sounds so exalted. I'm going to use that now. It's a lie, but that's not true, because it's not true. What it really was, to keep with the holiday season, instead of John Donne, it was towards the night before Christmas by Clement Moore. I wanted to write a poem that had that same sing-song thing as that, but I'll take Donne. From now on, it's a literary Donne. All right. Okay, so I start off with a quote. I start off with a quote from Brian Eno, and here, let me pull this up. Very proud of my FAQRS with Stieglitz. Okay, it starts off October 23rd, 1990. And this is Brian Eno. I thought somebody should piss in that thing to sort of bring it back to where it belonged. So I decided it had to be me. I described my action as recommodification. The name of the poem is Ode to Eno Peeing in Duchamp's Urinal. There's a fly in the urinal, apparently deceased. No movement at all that I could see, at least. As I unzip, I wonder, do flies have a soul? Is there a fly heaven where they can go? Are there fly preachers for this tiny species, promising rivers of honey and mountains of feces, vowing streets will be paved with rotting meat, exuding ambrosial fumes in eternal heat? There'd be no dread swatters with dried guts of kin. And of course, oh wait, I'm just printing stuff out. Wait. There'd be no dread swatters with dry guts of kin. And of course, no birds or spiders would be allowed in. But that's all too silly to seriously think so. They're just not important enough as species go. There's no heaven for this little fly with fields of garbage awaiting on high. No celestial bliss for this little fellow, just a watery grave of pale yellow. It crosses my mind that in this junction, I should probably feel some sense of compunction. I mean, it's not very nice, no way to behave, peeing disrespectfully on someone's grave. But this fly is not a someone, is he? Just a dead fly, and surely not as grand and deserving as I. Granted, a fly's existence has a useful role in our planet's system as a whole. While I and my kind, in the name of progress, pollute and destroy and make a big mess, a fly is not known to murder its kind. To hate and cruelty, he's not inclined. A fly would enslave one of its own. To greed and corruption, he's not prone. He really does nothing to which a fault you can pin. Okay, so he pukes on food, but that's not a sin. But a fly deserve heaven? Who'd believe it? No, that's reserved for the species who can conceive it, and who continue to hold a dogged insistence that they somehow deserve a continued existence, free from pain and sadness, no bones creaking, no spiders or swatters, metaphorically speaking, no maladies producing moaning and groaning, no hunger or sorrow, no anguish, no dying. What great hope and comfort in this grand ideal. Is it any wonder the mass appeal? But now a fly needs no solace. He doesn't fear death, has no selfish longing for eternal breath. He just does what he does because that's what he must. Then it's ashes to ashes and dust to dust. And someday my fate will be the same, and I'll return to that from which I came. You see, the atoms which constitute all creation give all things in nature an unbiased relation. And when everything's reduced to the bottom line, a fly's basic makeup is the same as mine. So maybe someday will our atoms unite in a tree or the ocean or a bird in flight. We might meet again this side of forever. So I say, adios, little guy, and I pull the flush lever. The end.
That's awesome. That is like the most depressing and perverse nursery rhyme I've ever heard. But no, you
Well,
really
thank you.
I can see the flea comparison, but you really do capture the cadence and structure of a nursery rhyme, right? Or something
Yeah.
like The Night Before Christmas, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
you capture it perfectly, and it's so wonderfully at odds with the like dismal material, like the really the complete like demolishment of like, that's not a word. You completely demolish our pretensions, right? In this poem, all of our like wonderful, high-minded ideals about how like we're so much better than the fly and we're destined for eternity and everything else, right? And you just annihilate that in this cute little nursery rhymes. That's awesome, Blake.
Cute. Thank you.
Yeah, Blake,
I
that
try to
was
be cute.
awesome. I think I listened to some Brian Eno, and didn't he have one called like "Here Come the Warm Jets" or something?
Yes, the warm,
Yeah,
exactly.
Warm Jets.
That's it. Exactly. As a matter of fact, listen to this. You know that you know who brought that to my attention, and you guys order that Oratio, that place I published that poem at. The editor told me that. And this guy is really fucking cool. I mean, I love, I'm with you guy, and I'm so happy that I wanted to publish his publications never heard of. I've been an expat and Bear Creek and all that. But there's all these really cool, really great publications. I know Josh is in one in Australia, and this guy, you ought to check him out because it says poetry, but I even sent him stuff that was like, I didn't even know what the fuck it was. I did something in here that was a picture from a play of mine, Bed Bugs and Beyond, a quote from Tennessee Williams, and a retelling of the Glacier story. And he he took it.
Holy
So
shit,
so I'm saying that guy, everybody in here, the stuff that you do, this guy is he's out there. That's another good venue for you to send your work off to.
Yeah, I hadn't really seen them before now, but I will 100% check it out.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you, Blake. And up next is Michael. Michael Mcsweeney.
Cool. Can you guys hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Awesome.
I hear
My
you.
internet really sucks right now. So cool. Let me share a document.
Now, before you go, Michael, you didn't want this shared on Twitter?
Yeah. This is like a super rough work in progress.
Okay. Now, is this the I don't want to give anything away, but is this the one?
It's not the Space Marines.
Yeah, okay.
But I am happy to report that is in progress.
Nice.
I'm trying to coordinate with a buddy of mine who is working in Antarctica right now on this.
Okay.
We had like joked years ago about doing a collection of short fiction about like Space Marines and penal legions, and
sweet.
It hasn't felt right to do this without him. So, but he's like very hard to get a hold of because he's just shoveling snow at the South Pole.
Gotcha.
So hopefully at a reading soon, I will have some Space Marine literary fiction to share with you, Rudy.
Awesome.
Cool. So yeah, like I said, this is like pretty new. It's probably a little long, and I think the ending kind of sucks, but wanted to try it out and just see what happens. This is called The Down Round. During the late 20-teens, I worked for a financial technology trade publication in New York with a modest subscription-based circulation. At a time when media giants were tossing reporters and editors from the windows in a mad bid to stave off the worst of their debt-guzzled destinies, my job felt like a raft. Not that the pay was much better, and most days my meals consisted of dividing a single burrito across my waking hours. But I worked, earned bylines, chased stories in the labyrinthine riches of lower Manhattan. bought regretful cocktails and money thumb speakeasies, and buried my regrets beneath warm confidence and the thrill of the rumor, the scoop, the information that nobody else possessed. Any other gig I sought wanted to see some experience, but few provided any clues on how to obtain it. A world in search of expertise, but unwilling to share its own. From our small office, I would gaze at the brick of the alley we faced, and imagine startup founders exiting buses and trains.
You're such a sausage.
Doesn't like startups. From our small office, I would gaze at the brick of the alley we faced and imagine startup founders exiting buses and trains, eager to press their tongues against the windows of venture capital firms and just maybe find satisfaction. During one of the sweat-slick heatwave slogs of my 2-year stint in the city, I received a text from a source, an associate from a downtown VC firm you've probably heard of, but as they and I long operated on terms of mutual anonymity, I won't mention it here. He had a tip about Monergy, a buzzy fintech startup that scored $100 million plus valuation in a funding round the preceding fall. I wrote about that round and interviewed Monergy's founder, Mcsweeney, at the startup co-op they used to occupy. Now they stayed in a glitzy floor in Jersey City, just around the corner from Goldman Sachs Tower. After some coy back and forth, the source shared the goods. Monergy raised a down round. Without getting into the maze-like particulars of venture financing, a down round essentially means a startup has raised at a lower valuation from a previous round. Most likely, my source speculated, Monergy was short on cash, wasn't hitting sales targets on its credit score-focused personal finance health app, and needed a boost. Hence, the down round. This surprised me because I'd heard Monergy was, like most startups, back at the money-raising table, filling its plate again at the seemingly endless trough of investor largesse. That's the way of things. Keep the credits splashing in, keep the positive headlines churning until you reach the exit, the liquidity, the entrepreneurial nirvana every founder seeks. Because of this, startups and their founders don't want to talk about down rounds. And most funding announcements crossing the wires won't mention these messier details in the hopes that the narrative, such as it is, can stay roped to their liking. As the conversation with my source died down, I sent a few other texts. Folks I knew in the New York fintech scene, a somewhat incestuous crowd prone to rumor. One friend said they'd heard about money troubles as well, the need for Monergy to go hat in hand to some of the bigger fintech-focused VCs around the city. Near the end of the day, as I punched up a short news hit about some banking regulator comments, my phone shook with good news. A chief marketing officer at one of Monergy's rivals had heard about the down round, begging me not to use their name in an article, but urging me on. Then, shortly after, another friend in the VC business who told me their firm was participating. He'd seen the paperwork. It was a true blue down round. I messaged my editor after I'd filed the brief. Hey, got some chatter about Monergy raising a down round. Interesting, my editor replied. They were in London, where it was the middle of the night. I wondered why they were awake, but thought not to ask. Gonna see if they'll confirm it to me. Have fun with Val's Flax. Let me know what you find. I shut my laptop and leaned back with a squeak. Monergy was one of those startups that always seemed to be bouncing from one PR firm to the next. Maybe the volatile nature of corporate storytelling was to blame, an insistence on getting the perfect pitch right. You had to respect the earnestness that sprouted in your inbox each day, even if the motives behind them were clear. They needed something from you, wanted to use what they called your platform, always gave lip service to, how can we assist you? A nod, perhaps, to the old days when a journalist might struggle to add a few inches to their newspaper column. I'm more callous to it now, but in those early New York days, I entered nearly every PR conversation with an anxiety that felt like a web of bee stings, a dull nag of exploitation. After I sent Monergy's chief marketing officer an email, I stuffed my laptop and chargers into my backpack and stood. A few reporters clacked away at their desks. Our alleyway vantage had darkened, starved from sunlight, but outside in the talkative streets, the waning day yellowed the brick and glass of the buildings rising around me. I tugged my weed pen from my pocket and drew in some of its vapor, allowing my mind, stretched beyond its limits to absorb the flow of news for 11 hours straight, to recede. I mindlessly flowed with the rest of a generation 10 years removed from a financial calamity we barely understood, down to the sweltering, screaming maze of the subway, then out to Brooklyn where beds and hours too small to get comfortable awaited us. The next morning, I stood in the lobby of the building where Monergy was headquartered. An email from the CMO was waiting for me when I'd plugged in at home the night before, inviting me to chat at their offices. My editor excused me from our morning meeting and sent me to find the truth, such as it was. I felt dried out as I straightened in front of the small camera at the security desk. The woman behind the desk then handed me a small printout with my picture and a QR code. Use this at the third elevator bank, she said. Please stop by here on your way out, if you can. Monergy was on the 6th floor. Like many of the startup offices I visited in those days, at least the ones not contained within the warrens of a co-op, Monergy opted for an open floor design, its dozens heavy team arrayed in webs of white desks. Mark, the CMO, guided me through the office to the far end, to Val Sweeney's desk. Val Sweeney was tall, with the frame and disposition of a spindly tree. He wore glasses and rose with a smile as I approached. We shook hands. Sid, he said, so great to see you again. I don't know why, but Val seemed like the kind of person whose voice would be deep, but he carried a distinct tenor, a bit airy if he spoke softly, and prone to hoarseness as I witnessed at some of the fintech events around the city to which he and I frequented, him as a panel participant and me nabbing snacks and free drinks with the rest of the reporter pool. Like most startup founders, Val didn't have a separate office for himself, but he'd clearly chosen the best view, overlooking an unevenly rectangular park of spare trees and benches packed with breakfasting professionals. Across the park, a skeleton of a new office complex rose and a crane was tugging a stack of metal beams at the top. Why don't we grab a pod and chat? Asked Val. He nodded to Mark, who led us across one of the side offices, clustered at the edge of the floor. Most of the employees I saw dressed casually and didn't seem to be terrifically busy. Some of the desk clusters were full of staffers. Others were empty, with high-end ergonomic chairs stacked upside down on the desks. We went into the side office and I took a chair at the far end from the door. I opened my bag and took my laptop out, setting it down in front of me. I'd entered my familiar routine, set up a 2-stage recording process, using the laptop as well as an app on my phone, in case one or the other crapped out during our conversation. I knew older reporters who scoffed at such tactics, being able to recall the particulars of long conversations with ease, somehow immune from the risk of a misquotation. I guess my motivation was more glib. I simply wanted to avoid the spiritual stress fracture that was the request for a correction, to fix a bad quote. Mark watched me as I set things up. Val walked into the room and set a few water bottles down in the middle of the table, cracking open one for himself. He sat down across from me. So, Mark tells me you're working on a story about us. I pressed record on both my laptop and phone and flipped open my notebook, where I'd scratched some thoughts and questions during a wee hour smoke session on my building's roof. I could barely read my handwriting, but I kept staring at the blurry details. Yeah, I think that's great. I know we've been hoping to connect with you guys again for a story. We're working on some really cool stuff that we'd love to chat about. This is already a huge year for the Monergy suite. First, our team has put a lot of effort into making it so our users can seamlessly connect to their favorite apps, social media, money management, banking, especially on the banking side. As you know, quite a few of our investors are from the banking world, and they're very excited about the value we can bring to their customers. Very excited, said Mark. Now, what does that mean? Let's talk about what that means. This means that, say, somebody at Bank of America can get a better insight into how their spending might affect their credit score in real time. We think this is a really huge for a lot of folks we talk to, out in the market. Changes to their credit come as a great surprise, right? Right, I said. Great. So as I said, hey, I started. I don't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to. I had some specific stuff I wanted to ask you about that I let Mark know about last night. Val looked at Mark, then back to me. Sure. What do you want to know? Well, my understanding, based on folks I've talked to and those on my team have talked to, is that Monergy is raising new funding round. Is that true? Val did a thing that most people reluctant to divulge details do. He glumly smiled, nodding a few times with his eyes set on the wall. Then he looked back at me. We're always looking at opportunities for accessing capital, including conversations with our investors, like any startup. Does that answer your question? My understanding is that these conversations are pretty far advanced, just a matter of paperwork at this point. Well, I can tell you off the record that we are having, discussions with our investors, and when we're ready to announce something, Mark would be happy to fill you in. I cleared my throat. My body felt like a hollow point round, almost as if I was about to start shaking from the energy about to surge. It's really hard to describe this kind of feeling to people who don't know it up close, the cavernous exhilaration of it. I've heard from 3 sources that you're raising a down round. At a lower valuation, I mean. Val folded his hands. I held his gaze. Then he said, you know, it's hard to talk about this sort of thing. There's a lot to startup financing that a lot of reporters, including a few at your site, sometimes gloss over. I opened my mouth to protest and Val kept going. I think we'd have a tough time talking about this on the record, given the nature of our discussions. But yes, we are raising around at a lower valuation. That, as I said, is something that most people don't understand. But I've got 3 sources, including one who's seen the details. And who is that? I can't share that information. Well, how am I supposed to respond to that? And off the record, you're always going to hear all kinds of rumors, I'm saying, flying around this space. People love to gossip. This isn't gossip, I said. And as soon as I did, I regretted it. Of course it's gossip. What is it you think you people do all day? Okay, said Mark. He sat up in his chair. Sid, if you want to send us some specific questions around this in an email, it'd be a lot easier to answer. A few points of sweat like translucent stars shined on Val's face. He didn't look at Mark. Look, and all of this is off the record, but even if we did raise it down around, what would be the big deal? Why is that newsworthy? You guys are a notable startup. Sure, but what's a down round? It's money. We get money and then we spend it to serve our clients and to bring value to our investors. We're doing what every other startup is doing. That's true. So why don't you print that? No, what you're looking is for something salacious for your site, right? Monergy raises a down round. Monergy is in trouble. Monergy is dying. I never said that, but that's what it means, right? That phrase, down round. It's a kiss of death. Val flattened his hands on the table, staring at the space between them. What gives you the right to report this? He'll never know all the facts. You aren't in the room. Do you know how hard this shit is? How many hours I put in each day? I don't have time to sleep. These questions are never ending. Sometimes you just make stuff up to keep the people around you happy. Investors, got to keep them happy. So say whatever it is you need to say. We cover fintech, we cover startups, you tell stories. And people love to read the nightmares as well as the fairy tales, especially if it's a fall from grace. Monergy raises at a lower valuation and Mcsweeney gets mad, right? That's not what I said. I'm not trying to make this a fake news thing, by the way, but you've never really made anything of value in your life. Somebody handed you a computer and said, here, go out and pass judgment. Go define what's true. Val stood. Then he said, Monergy isn't dying. We've never been better. A down round doesn't mean anything. And I'd be careful about putting stuff that isn't true in your article. He left the room. For a few minutes, I said nothing, and Mark said nothing. And I listened to the whir of my laptop as the battery blazed hot, demanding to be cooled. Would you be willing to check quotes? Mark asked as I packed up my things. Our article came out 3 days later. The public response was muted. The social media spread minuscule. A few industry critters trolled Val in my mentions. I was off for the day and didn't check my emails. Later, I was told that Val called my editor and complained about the article's contents. In the end, I had misspelled an investor's name. Val was angry about the framing, and Mark wanted another quote added about Monergy's product roadmap. My editor, a compromiser, often tired, acquiesced and added the quote. That night, I sat in a ramen place around the corner from my apartment and read the email thread. The thrill of information, the scoop, the hot details faded against the noise of the city. I thought of the things Val said. I thought about being a storyteller, about the things I didn't know for sure, how, as a reporter, I was a nosy talking flashlight in the corner, trying to divine what people refused to say. I was scared that Val was right, that by producing my story, I presumed the right to determine what was true, who was strong and who was weak, who will succeed and who will fail. Hadn't Monergy gotten the money they wanted? Didn't that mean they were still alive? I paid my bill and left the restaurant. I drew in some weed vape, ignoring the flashing battery light in the end. The street wind rose, and I felt my mind sweep away alongside it. And that's it.
I really dug this. And I really dug this because every fucking sentence was plausible. Like even down to shit like the name of the startup. Monergy is like the perfect like nebulous startup name, isn't it? Like it's like, okay, you can kind of envision what they would do, right? But it has that perfect like we're selling the brand kind of vibe to it. And like the story goes to like an amazingly poignant place too, and in a clever way, because like my sympathies going in the beginning were very much with the reporter, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be about this like this kind of like morally empty tech startup, and the reporter gets the scoop or whatever. But the way you flip the like the moral coin or whatever, the way you like reverse the moral polarity of this story when the guy like goes after the reporter, and what he says is entirely cogent and entirely true, right? Like this is a person chasing a somewhat like ephemeral scoop that's going to do a lot of damage and not really tell the readers very much. I don't know, it's just really good. It's a really good. You can like, I know this is kind of adjacent to the world that you occupy as a reporter, and you can feel that here. This feels researched. Every word feels fucking authentic and true. So I dig it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it definitely needs some scrubbing, and I think it gets a little rushed toward the end, but I appreciate the thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Well, oh, and just on your last point there, I would almost flesh this out into something larger than what it is. Because you might be right that it kind of wraps up. I mean, not that this piece in the way it's written can offer like a conclusion or catharsis, or should offer a conclusion or a catharsis, but I do feel like you could flesh this out into something that's like twice the length of what it is. And maybe that's why the ending feels like, to you anyway, like it's a little bit like rushed.
Yeah, I mean, when I was kind of writing the dialogue, I mean, I was kind of like writing this today primarily, and like the stuff about kind of who has the right to tell a story. I think that's what kind of interests me about this, and in my experiences working as a reporter, it's like some of the stuff that the founder says, like there are people who are very justified in some of those comments and say that, but others who are entirely unjustified will say the same things.
Right.
So I feel like, I don't know, maybe the current version, because it's as short as it is, like maybe feels a little, it kind of feels a little ham-fisted, but I guess that's sort of the question I'm turning, is like, sort of like who has the right to tell someone else's story. And by saying, oh well, your startup isn't healthy necessarily, you're kind of saying this person isn't healthy and not succeeding. And
Right.
Is that fair for you to say? So
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I'm thinking that like maybe then another section that really gets into the outcomes of the story might help add some ambiguity there, because I think you make like some really cogent points at the end where it's like, well, after all, like, didn't they get their funding anyway, right? And I think if maybe you go like a little bit deeper into how the sausage gets made there, maybe there could be like, you could tease out some ambiguity that like makes the marketing guy feel less justified in flipping out at the reporter, right? Like that makes it feel more like, well, there's two complete perspectives here, and neither one is correct, right?
yeah, and like the original version I plan to write, and I think this is probably what I need to do next, is like that bit at the end where it says like, oh well, they called and complained. Like I think that's going to be its own dialogue, but I just haven't written it yet. And
Yeah,
I wanted to read this tonight, so I kind of slapped a few paragraphs on there at the end. So but I appreciate the thoughts, and I look forward to maybe sharing this one again in the future.
I just wanted to say, Michael, I really, and I don't say this a lot, but I appreciate how like accessible this is. To me, as someone who like doesn't really follow like financial world or like any stuff like that, I had to actually look up what a down round was. I mean, like, so that kind of the level, but the way it's paced is it's clear, and it's definitely like William talked about the twist there. You feel the human element of it definitely, and the characters become like really something you can throw a latch onto, which is cool for me. And I like and the like the ideas of the startup and stuff like that. It comes through really well. I just wanted you to know that it's it's a good hook is what I'm trying to say basically. Too many words.
Awesome. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. Up next is Derek. Now, Derek, have you decided which of the two pieces you're going to read?
Yeah, can you hear me all right? Or am I too loud or too quiet or anything?
No, you're perfect. You're perfect.
I hear
I'm
you
going to
good.
read A Happy Normal Life.
Awesome. Okay, I'll put that one
I
in.
tried to read this before and I wasn't able. So I'm really, I mean, it's not like I didn't forget how to read. Wasn't like that. But yeah, so I'm going to read this one. Yeah, so thanks for the indulgence on that part. It's fixed up, and the part I wasn't able to read is it wasn't make sense without it. This is going to come out like in that Legia magazine in January, and I have a hamster that lives in this room now for some reason. Hamsters are awake all night, but I didn't know that before the person that asked for it before I got it. So now I can't, like, the one place that I have peace and quiet up here, you know what I mean, like at night, and I can like sit up here, like now I've got to hear it on this wheel constantly. And like the first thing I did within not even 5 minutes, 10 minutes of owning the thing was Googling how long it was going to live. But sorry, so this is called A Happy Normal Life. My barber's daughter is having a rough time in Pittsburgh. There's a clearance sale over at Batteries and Bulbs. The signs are everywhere. My mother's surgery went well. The many strokes have subsided. 100% blockage on the left side. Nothing they can do. The right side is enough, Dr. Charles said. Dr. Charles says she can live a happy, normal life with just the right side. I'm relieved she didn't die. I don't know how I could have written her obituary. I've been blocked for months. Dr. Charles said she could live a happy, normal life now. I don't know what he did when he had her filleted on the operating table, that now she can live a happy, normal life. It doesn't seem possible. My barber, he gave me a pompadour. I don't know why. I didn't ask for it. I didn't ask for any of this. I was in my mother's belly, cradled with love by the smoke from her nonstop Salem Light Menthol 100s. Then I was outside my mother's belly, and it was summer or fall, and the cousins are running in the dandelion fields by the curing barn, and the uncles are shooting apples. There must have been some mistake. There almost always is. Then it was later, some other time, I guess, and my kids are screaming over each other about a scholastic book fair or field trip or a field day maybe, and I have to stand there and take it with a pompadour. The scar on my mother's neck is so disgusting. It's not even a scar. It's her insides mingling with fresh air. She won't wear a scarf. Sometimes it pusses. Sometimes it bleeds. It grows bigger and nastier in my imagination, which is the only place it lives most of the time because I can't stomach the sight long enough to look at her. Why is it taking so long to heal? My dad asked. That's a great question, I say. At least she's not dead, he thinks. There's no way I could have written her obituary, I say. I've been blocked for months. My daughter's wound healed much faster, and there were over 300 stitches. I had to hold her down with all my strength on the pediatrician's table while they took each one out, one by one, with tweezers, and she red-faced screamed at me the entire time. I never broke eye contact. I did not shed a single tear. I gave her my face to scream at the entire time because it was the only thing I could give her. And she didn't nonstop smoke Salem Light Menthol 100s until the left side was 100% blocked. Nothing they can do. She was just playing in the water on a beautiful summer day. Her bathing suit is a little too big, my wife says, lying next to me, watching her off before the surgery to save her leg. What surgery to save her leg? My wife asked, concerned. Then the screams. I'm going to give you a hard part on the left, he says. All I hear is hard part on the left, 100% blockage, nothing we can do. I didn't know this meant I would end up with a pompadour. I didn't ask for it. I didn't ask for any of this. My barber's daughter is having a rough time in Pittsburgh. The hard parts are everywhere. She always had emotional problems. It started when she was young. Do you have a daughter? He asked. I do. She's 7. She'll be 8 in February. She has a shark tooth, left leg. This is the hard part. 100% blockage, nothing we can do. His daughter sells her artwork. A lot of it is hung up on the wall of her father's barbershop. There's a terribly ugly collage-like rendition of the cover of Thriller by Michael Jackson, and a terrible, ugly collage-like rendition of the cover of In the Airplane Over the Sea by Neutral Milk Hotel, and a terribly ugly collage-like rendition of the cover of Kick by NXS. How much is that one, I ask? Which one? It doesn't matter. They are already sold. His daughter sells her artwork. He buys all of it and hangs it up on the wall of his barbershop. She only calls to talk to her mother. She doesn't tell me much, she says. She has emotional problems. She always has. Probably she'll move back home, he thinks. You just have to be there for them. That's all you can do, he says. The supply chain is a disaster. There's a paper shortage. There's a clearance sale over at Batteries and Bulbs. The signs are everywhere. My barber's daughter has emotional problems. Her roommate gave her a month to pack up her stuff and get the hell out. Something awful happened. Where have all the reliable truck drivers gone? There are kinks in the supply chain everywhere. It's been blocked for months. Am I going to have to go down to the docks and sort this mess out myself? Help is wanted. The signs are everywhere. The price of everything is going up. Pound of flesh. Sharks in the water smell blood. Pittsburgh. What did any one of us expect? Buried in all that steel. She's an artist, he insists. Pittsburgh is home to a vibrant art scene. Vibrant. It varies. There are variants. Buried in all that still. I can see shore. We're having trouble getting the things we need from here to there. Kinks in the supply chain. Don't kink shame the supply chain. Help wanted. $15. Can't believe I'm telling you all this, he says. Who would you even tell there, right? Right, I mumble. It's not like I'm getting all this down, I joke. How could you, he asks. I've been blocked for months. I couldn't even write my mother's obituary, I confess. When did your mother pass, he asks. She didn't. I even tried to kill her on a rooftop in Crown Heights, singing the lyrics from the Dolphin Lane Motel off-seas in 1993 to 1995 to so many sad strangers. That's good she's not dead, he says. It was a tragedy, I think. Where do you even put an obituary these days? The paper doesn't come anymore. There's a paper shortage. On the drive home, I listen to terrible Midwest emo from my childhood. Everywhere I look, there are snags in the supply chain. There's a clearance sale over at Batteries and Bulbs. The signs are everywhere. This time next year, I'll be a famous novelist, if they can at least figure out the supply chain. There's a paper shortage. It's been blocked for months. I can't believe I have a pompadour. I can't even hide how much of an asshole I am anymore. I'm furious at my barber. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for any of this. I can't say anything. I'm stuck like this. We're both stuck like this. I've been blocked for months, and his daughter is having a rough time in Pittsburgh.
This piece still kicks ass. This piece still kicks ass. And I'm surprised, but very happy that your answer to the problem that you had with the piece was to double down. Like you, if I'm correct, you actually added more content about the shark attack into this piece, right?
I removed yeah, that wasn't my problem with the piece necessarily. That was definitely my problem with reading it.
Okay.
But thankfully I didn't have that. But that's why I wanted to read it. So I removed something else. I was gonna say, and then I recalled that this is recorded. So I will say what I removed in a non-recorded section. I just caught myself really quick there.
Gotcha. Understood. But no, I mean, this piece seems very similar to the previous version, but I like that because the previous version was basically fucking perfect. I do have to ask about one line though, because it grabbed me this time, and I would think it would have grabbed me last time. I put it in the chat, but I lost it in the chat. Oh my God. It's the insides line. Where is it? Sorry, there's a really long conversation about cigarettes in the chat. Oh, it's her insides mingling with the fresh air. Was that added? Is that new, or was that in the earlier draft?
That was in the earlier draft, but I think that's probably the entire paragraph that I skipped.
Gotcha.
When I read it.
Gotcha.
Do you see what I'm saying? Because that's the paragraph where I removed stuff. So it was in the draft, but I'm pretty sure when I read it, I went from like, I just skipped the whole thing. So yeah.
Okay. Because that line kicked my ass this time around.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Anyway, Derek, this is still an awesome piece, and I'm very happy that you decided to publish it, and I'm very happy you found a home for it.
Thanks so much.
Anyway, next up is Forrest.
Yeah, excuse me for being in character. I'm a
Yes.
psychoanalyst at home alone. So.
This transmission of Hearts of Space, we kick off the new year with a buoyant, energetic version for synthesizer, programmed and performed by Yaron and Sandra Vante. Simeon 10 Holtz, Canto Ostinato for synthesizer. Let's call it Canto Electronico on this transmission of Hearts of Space.
I have been playing the synthesizer with increasing frequency since my wife left. Like literature, ambient synthesizer music is a creative activity that I indulge in quietly at home, out of the way of any interference between my ego and my own pleasure. I bought my first synth for my daughter, a Yamaha DX7, which is often associated with the pop music made during the musical zeitgeist that preceded the digital revolution. Before commercial laptops were all pre-packaged with digital audio workstations and software synths, the DX7's digitally controlled oscillator and algorithmic tone shaping tech was state-of-the-art sound creation technology. When I purchased the DX7, I had hoped my daughter would take to the instrument, and perhaps even my son after her. But it was not long after I purchased my first synthesizer when both my children began yearning for their own personal computing apparatuses, with which came the illusion of having all the doings of a DX7 and seemingly infinite other programs that might distract from a young woman's musical development. I am sure it is quite obvious to most culturally aware individuals of my generation, the approximate generation known as X, the digital revolution laid a schizophrenic pall over nearly all of the consumption and production of media, as if culture had not been properly attuned by the time I saw the immensity of what was Joey Ramone walking down the street in Alphabet City, holding his guitar, or perhaps when I, well, not me, but a member of my psychoanalytic cohort at the school, and someone whom I considered to be a friend of mine once, interviewed William S. Burroughs about his addictions, pedophilia, and the incident in which the author shot his wife in the head. As if culture was not already dead enough, my son's generation took what is likely my generation's greatest innovation, the home computing system, and injected it with commerce and advertising so tenacious that it implants itself in every modicum of one's being so that not only does the content of what appears on my son's computer screen seem to be the stuff of nightmarish schizophrenic hallucinations, but furthermore, that each consumer of this culture, essentially every single person on the planet, has been subject to at least a few innocuous schizophrenic delusions about the world they live in and the place and their place in it. I mean, for the all that is love, Jules, have you seen the video of my son dressed in a purple kimono, whorish makeup, and blonde wig, inject himself, as he claims in the video, with a concoction, of LSD, methamphetamine, fentanyl, ketamine, tranquilizer, and Cialis. And then, as my son begins to drool on himself, with the bloody syringe trembling in his hand as his fairly well-sized penis grows increasingly erect. Meth and Cialis. Should one even ask how he babbles on about the reason he did what he had done was because he thought he had already died doing it. And he wanted to see if doing it again would bring him back to life. Granted, this is the lowest of low culture and seemingly only intended for a private audience, but nonetheless, there it is in the glorious 60 frames per second, high definition video footage shot on one of the numerous Apple smartphones I have bought for my son. What else could a media example such as this say but that not only does culture remain quite dead, but furthermore, a sad, soul-flattening blanket that carries the disease of psychosis has been laid upon its rotting corpse. I began today talking about synthesizers for a reason. The past 2 days, an insufferable nervous energy has anguished my entire being, and I have not been able to write ever since I pasted the text in which my son advertised himself as a lady whore in the pages above. The nightmarish images I have seen on my son's computer inevitably shatter my reality whenever another thought enters into my head. I spent 2 days attempting to trudge through my manuscript as the pace requisite to its purpose. But each time I returned to my writing desk, I was forced to read what I had last wrote, my son as Lady Whore, and the most anguished sensation a father could possibly experience, the sight of death, came flooding back into my entire nervous system. I first became familiar with the DX7 while listening to a syndicated public radio show that came out of the Bay Area called Hearts of Space. Hearts of Space, or HOS for short, featured a seemingly boundless offering of ambient music every Saturday evening. And during that time, when my children were approaching their pubescent years, I began a habit of retreating to the basement Saturday evenings, where I would hang upside down from my chiropractic gravity boots and just sort of let my mind collect new thoughts while visualizing the sounds that would flow from synthesizers like the rolling fluorescence of cosmic gases far away from earthly disruptions, which in today's world typically smash into consciousness like meteoroids would a space shuttle as it passes through an asteroid belt. The host of Hearts of Space has perhaps has. I'm not entirely sure if the show is still broadcast, but the last time I recall listening to Hearts of Space was before my son last left for college, and at which point my wife and I began spending more time together watching movies and television at home during the evening. Perhaps I should check the radio, because the Hearts of Space could be on this coming Saturday. And since, to the extent of my knowledge, I will be alone with nothing to do but engage with my new alchemical practice involving my son's pornography and the cheap simulacrum of the publishing industry that has cropped up in the cultural hellscape created by Amazon robots programmed package up and sell any artifact that resembles what history teaches us about what culture was, my manuscript notwithstanding, and which, by the way, is in fact the only world my son has ever known. I am not sure ambient music, if it is truly the thing it claims to be, is even culture. And though the host of Hearts of Space, Stephen Hill, has pitch perfect taste, and encyclopedic knowledge on the entirety of the genre and its instruments, from the pre-Eno pioneers, Lamont Young, Terry Riley, Harry Partch, and so on. And whatever lush harmonies and soothing rhythms are resonating beneath the ozone at the moment of each transmission, I find it difficult to place Mr. Hill in the same intellectual class as music critics and historians. If ambient music is truly what it is supposed to be, for example, the soft shuffling of shoes produced by unwitting nurses, as an inchoate ambient composer named Brian Eno strained his ears to hear the Bach his hospital visitor had mistakenly left at a barely perceptible volume as the patient was in the process of returning from a 10-day coma. If this is what ambient truly is, then it is far more than what can be confined in music theory textbooks, nor written with the 12-tone notation system that developed during the 2,000 years preceding Yamaha's invention of the DX7, or Apple Computer's invention of my son's DIY pornographic film studio. Indeed, ambient is Gesamtkunstwerk. Beyond the creation of a single composer, ambient is not as music used to be pre-17th century, when it was God communicating through woman, or in the 19th century, when men became gods to invent music and with the rest of the universe. No, ambient market is markedly different. It is a totality of consciousness without obstruction of otherness between man and all else. One autumn evening, while hanging from my gravity boots in the basement, the floor tickling my brain as it brushed against my hair, I recall the host of Hearts of Space, Stephen Hill, introducing his transmission, as he refers to his program, by speaking about the changing seasons, followed by a brief segue into a soliloquy about the larger topic of climate change. As the evening's music was elevated in the mix until it swallowed Mr. Hill's voice and swept me away, I recall the harmonies. That particular set being more dissonant than usual, punctuated by biting percussive plunks that seemed to puncture everyday reality and expose something occurring just beyond the limits of perception. Looking back on it, I can see how some might interpret this incident as a midlife crisis, whatever that means. And that doesn't bother me, even if I would rather not think of a life occurring in a strict trifecta of beginning, middle, and end. In any case, what I experienced that night was something akin to an experience I had while reading Ram Dass and Timothy Leary's interpretation of the Tibetan Book of the Dead many years ago, while high on a strong dose of LSD, an hallucinatory transportation to a space that exists just beyond the one we inhabit, a sensory deprivation, where for a fleeting moment one might experience pure being, similar to the way Tibetans describe the first of the 3 stages on the journey towards death, and what the aforementioned hippie psychologists refer to as ego death, a mystical experience where one's surroundings fade into a whole white void and any sense of the body is lost into a new type of overwhelming physical sensation, an ecstatic glow of life floods experience as one merges into a unified ocean of orgiastic fluid electricity and peaceful boundless light. An experience that those who practice the monotheistic religions might associate with God, an oceanic feeling, I suppose, in Freudian terms. Perhaps I ate something strange that night. Perhaps my son poisoned me with a dose of narcotics. Or Perhaps I hung from my gravity boots a bit longer than what is recommended, and the blood in my skull altered my mind. But I don't think so. I believe it was the synthesizer leading my mind from the eschatological fantasies related to climate change into fantasies about my own death and the death of my family, whatever the case may be. I completely lost sense of time or place as I hallucinated that I had metamorphosized into the chemical makeup of electricity and traveled through the wiring of my house into the old FM radio, went out into this radio's antenna as an FM signal above my home, where I saw my wife through the window speaking on the phone, then further into the sky above our city, where I recognized my children from far below, riding in cars, loitering outside of a movie theater. I felt my nervous system spread out across the mountains and valleys, and I was experiencing many thousands of acres simultaneously until I was one with the entire range of National Public Radio Hearts of Space broadcasts spanning the entire nation. During this moment, then the oceans, earth, moon, sun, until finally nothing but light in my own being. All right, that's it.
Holy fucking shit, Forrest. My jaw is on the fucking floor. Holy fuck. First of all, like, you got to read the chat afterwards because the audience was going nuts on that one. Like, even setting the fucking incredible performance aside, right, and talking about what you accomplished with the piece itself, holy shit, this is fucking phenomenal. Like, I love how each time you present a chapter from this piece, you get deeper and darker into this character's psychosis, right? Like, the first one you presented, he seemed like kind of a milquetoast, spiteful kind of psychologist character. Now you're so deep, and he's become like so elaborate and so complete and so fucking nuts, right? And there are so many fucking hilarious lines in this. You can just go through the chat because I put a bunch of them in there, and so did a lot of other people. But I was cracking up like fucking minute to minute to minute. And then the end, boom, you're on another plane of existence, and it becomes like poignant and profound. Like, the first 3/4 of that, you're laughing at this poor fucker, right? And at like his pretensions and like his obsession with his son's like weird sexuality or whatever. And then in that last quarter, you're in fucking space having this absolutely hallucinogenic experience, and you're one with this poor guy, and you were like, and it's so good, it's so poignant, it's such an amazing shift in tone. And I'm rambling. It's fucking incredible, Forrest. I love this.
Can I just jump in for a second and say that this piece, I mean, I really felt like I needed a defibrillator. It was so amazing. But how, and you ended it, how you wound down the text with the music, fucking, I can't believe that. I'm trying to catch my breath there. Brilliant. This was so brilliant, Forrest. Oh my God.
No, I really appreciate that, Blick, because I miss theater immensely. I mean, I never had the chance to see it much, but I miss even just like performing with friends someplace, so I I wanted to do that, and I maybe I'll continue doing it. But I appreciate you saying that. And William, your commentary is guiding me. I've written so much about synthesizers, but I've written so much since I started reading here. Like, I just keep adding to it, and it is guiding me in what the criticism is helping quite a bit. So thank you.
It's phenomenal for us, and thank you for reading.
Yeah, I just want to jump in real quick and say about the performance. The way you channel that character, and I said this in the chat, but it's very much a Peter Sellers type of thing. I mean that honestly. Like I found my arm going up there to do the the Mein Führer thing, which is something I totally don't do every day in my house by myself. I'm in my room alone anyway. But no, that was a phenomenal fucking performance. I love it. And the combination of the synthesizer, the audio stuff really brings it out. And like Blick had mentioned, when you slow it down at the end there and you kind of bring the people in the audience, I guess, into this guy's world. And it's amazing. Like, it was real good.
Nice.
Yeah, fucking rock. Oh, sorry.
No, that's it. I don't have much else to say. I'm actually quite tired, but I'm having a lot of fun anyway.
Yeah, thank you for us. So, Josh, our good friend Josh Sherman signed up to read, but he hasn't, I think, materialized yet. Are you out there, Josh? Are you with us? If not, I think we're going to skip to Gabe is next, and then we'll see if Josh has showed up by the end of the show here. So Gabe, I'll put your piece in the chat.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right, this is called A Loss of Containment. More often than I should, I must explain rain in the desert to others. You get rain in the desert, but it's the desert, they say. Yes, you are correct. It is the desert, I say. But where you are in the city, where when it rains, it pours, you're shielded by structures that obstruct the whole horizon. Then there's trees and your inflated sense of self-worth, and so on. In the desert, there is nothing to protect you. All your faith must lie on your roof, because when it pours, it pounds. There was a long time there, up until 6 years ago, when I still lived in the city, where I loved the rain. The way it provided an elemental, even biblical excuse to slow the hustle, a look out the window to wonder, igniting the imagination by means of insular, naive romanticism. Through the safety of a drenched pane, like the framework of a living painting, I could personify my reductive cultural associations. Film noir. Someday a rain will come and wash all the scum off the streets. Shoegaze. I'm on the edge of something and I'm happy when it rains. And really any book, because I could finish one within the rain's duration. An unexpected punctuation of the day. Each drop I heard meant something was happening, a heartening, like coffee percolating. Even when stuck at work, the rain offered an oddly comforting illusion that our workplace doubled as a second shelter, therefore our second home. Our hive was dry and we were all in it together. Some days it felt like we never even left. But today, in the desert, the drip is embittering. With each drop, I am paralyzed by guilt and inadequacy instead of innocently mystified. Every bombarding driblet, a taunting reminder where it's coming from the ceiling, where it's coming out from the ceiling, though never illuminating where it's coming in on the roof. Each drop a light amber, like weak coffee filtered through phantom mold and even weaker wood grain, softened through the neglect of the man who vowed, yet can barely afford to be its noble custodian. No one checked the long-term integrity of his own mental faculties up there, I think, as I tap my temple to the beat of its rhythm. Drip, 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 dripping down to the middle of my living room, into my black plastic cement mixing trough, the only thing wide enough to catch it all. It's the receptacle I used when I refilled the hole they cut into our patio, the discolored patch back there where I naively wrote C+L inside a heart with a stick. Then, when she was gone, I tell everyone that's where we buried the baby we never actually had. My tasteless, expired cry for help, just in case anyone still hadn't grasped how bad we failed at taking care of one another. Still, years later, these drips from the ceiling are a pipeline to her thrashing, crying fits when she'd blame me for our loss of containment, even though every wizened desert roof shaman had been up there as well, searching for the breach in the tar to no avail. But did I not save the day when that snake slithered inside, when I sleuthed out the tiniest hole behind the bathroom sink from which it entered, where I became chivalrous with the expanding spray foam as my conquering sword? Or the time she stood in the middle of the kitchen explaining to me how we must go on more vacations while 100 baby spiders descended behind her from between the ceiling planks when I told her, come, let's talk about it in the living room, so she wouldn't notice these tiny bombardments before my subsequent immaculate cocking job? No, she never knew about either. I was terrified to alert her that we had just lost containment further. Drip, drip, drip. It's hypnotic torture, this repetition of my failure, and no one is allowed over when it's raining because I will ignore them, especially if they show an ounce of sympathy. This is the exile nobility of homeownership, where no one can save me. But if you don't have a roof, you don't even have a house, do you? My dad snaps me out of it. I forgot he was here at my unhouse, where I'm supposed to be taking care of him. You okay, he asks? I've said your name 5 times. Sorry, I don't finish because I need to get up off the couch and continue pacing, fixating on the leak from different angles like it will change it into something else. I'm really sorry, this is embarrassing. Why embarrassing, he says, a fuck it chuckle. My 83-year-old father, who is still married to my mother, is sweet, absolutely unbitter, accepting of everyone and everything, which only makes my displaced guilt about my roof more insidious. Like the roof, harder to trace its source. I'm afraid I can't compete with his calm, resigned nature hanging over me. Like the roof, the rain just seems to go right through him. He's an infuriatingly happy man. And what's even worse is how absolutely sincere the happiness is. He is now my responsibility, however. So I must be the good son, make sure he is comfortable for these 3 days that began in tandem with a 4-day storm. Are you okay? Do you need anything? I ask. I'm fine, he says, exactly what I was afraid of. I have no reason to be annoyed with my father, but I would feel a lot better if he would join me in cursing this leak above us. It would be no solution, but it would be decisive of where we stand. Instead, he asks if we can go for a ride, if I would take him up the hill to our more civilized township. We bundle up, warm up the car, and head down one of the most dangerous highways in California, where our incorporated town of Morongo Valley boasts the highest percentage of roadside graves in the whole high desert. As we travel, I feel an umbilical strain, stretching my connection to the leak like a rubber band about to break, convincing me it'd be less painful to retreat. But on we trudge. When we reach the next city limits, we drive aimlessly in the downpour because he's trying to find a desert treasure for my mother. What kind of desert treasure, Dad? Well, I don't know. I just know it's out here, he says. When we return home, I'm relieved. I feel guilty I was out there, neglecting my observance of the leak, the one job I have until I can actually do something about it. Drip, 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 drip. Well, don't you have any friends? Asked my dad. Where are all your friends? It's an innocent inquiry, but the implication makes me so self-conscious I have to refrain from punching the wall. Geez, yeah, of course I have friends, I say, though I can't recall the last time I've seen one. I just don't like them to see me like this. Oh, are you depressed? Sure, yes, I am depressed, I tell him, and it's the clearest, most informed comment I've ever made on the subject. I tell him I used to get depressed, or what I thought was depression, for good reason. How it was always accompanied by a source I could trace it back to. Therefore, I could sort myself out without having to spread it to others who weren't asking for it. But now, I tell him, I know it's real, how this year it's been like my first time, because it comes from nowhere, without warning, always overstaying, how it might thin 1 minute only to thicken the next, how I'll check to see what day it is only to realize I've lost 3 of them, how I feel horrible now to think I was one of those arrogant, merciless, pull yourself up by your bootstrap tyrants to my friends who suffer real, debilitating clinical depression. How dare I could claim they weren't pulling their weight when they were being crushed by it. But at least I know now there's nothing anyone could do to help. How it might take days, you'll never get back, but you just have to write it out. Somehow care and also not care. You know, I suffer from depression too, ever since. My dad pauses, thinks, shrugs. Well, my whole life, really. Is that right? I'm legitimately shocked, hoping he's not just saying that so I'll feel better or less alone. Well, I gotta say, you've definitely played it off well. Why am I just now hearing this? Well, because I'm a husband and I'm a father. Husbands and fathers are forbidden to let their wives or children know they're depressed, you know. He closes his eyes, preparing for his nightly trance. Why do you think I still do this? He's referring to his regimented meditations. I reconsider this one source of my general resentment, how when we were kids, he and my mother uprooted us from California, drip, to move to the Midwest to join a meditation cult, drip. How my siblings and I lost 5 formative years there, drip, but it's suddenly easier to digest in this moment, learning my dad might have just been seeking an alternative to his black cloud, drip. Whether it was the right or wrong thing to do, the good news is that it already happened, he says, drip. It's one of those statements that transcends agreement. It's so passive that it's nearly impossible to argue with, drip. Because I can't respond, I scribble something half legible on the back of my water bill, drip. Trying to embrace this new naivety, drip, attempting to innocently muse on the rain again, drip, since the depression feels like the first time again, drip, since it hasn't already happened, drip, since it's still happening, drip. Remember, it's only water, he says, closing his eyes again, drip. It's only the most destructive force on the planet, I say. I watch another drop fall from the ceiling, behind the couch that's obscuring my view from the black plastic cement mixing receptacle. I listen. No more dull thuds. Now I hear the tiny splash, indicating we have graduated to puddle. Only now the splashing is out of sync with the impact. Each time there is a drip, it sounds like the single drop is frolicking in the accumulation. I jump up. No, stop. In horror, I see my puppy lapping up the water from the black plastic cement mixing receptacle. I grab him, lift him from the bitter brown fluid. My heart breaks, assuming he was trying to pull his weight, helping make the water disappear, until I take him into the kitchen where my heart breaks further when I check his water bowl and see it is bone dry. I'm supposed to be taking care of my father and my dog. These living things have no choice but to rely on me. I attempt to peel my attention away from the leak, try to foster this new connection of darkness between my father and I, to nourish what appeared to be a brave confession from him. What's your personal experience been with depression, Dad? Like, do you question your very form and place on earth to the point where you almost encourage that formlessness in order to gain control over its intrusive quality, to the point where you want to disappear, to evaporate, if you will? I'm too late to catch myself, overindulgent to the point of advocacy. Again, that's why I do this, he says, closing his eyes again. To become accustomed with what it might be like to cease to exist.
I got you. But look, it's old ass people again.
Gabe, I apologize. I just accidentally muted you while I was trying to mute the troll. I apologize. If you could just unmute yourself.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
We were at, again, that's why I meditate.
Oh. Wait. Oh, again, that's why I still do this, he says, closing his eyes again. To become accustomed with what it might be like to cease to exist. It's almost like rehearsing for your death in a very non-dramatic way. He says all of this with eyes shut. It occurs to me I may have been interrupting his process. It's his discipline, I now realize, where once I assumed it was his default mode for acting aloof, for just letting things happen, even if the things fall through his fingers. I assumed it was this practice of neglect that could have inspired my commitment to debauchery, to disembody myself, a ritualized self-negation that now makes me wish I had been taught my own semblance of discipline. I try closing my eyes with him in effort to tune out the drip, 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 but every drop feels like electric shock to me, attention my father doesn't deserve. I leave the room to offer peace to the man who has taught himself to be fine with anything, even if it's been learned by the accumulated weight of surrender. 3 days later, a break in the clouds, the sun an eager saw cutting through the wall of gray. My father and I walk outside, watch the dog make up for lost time. That's a good dog you have, says my dad. He turns, points to the front door, and you know, that's a good house. I give in, I pivot with him, acknowledging the value and deferring to an 83-year-old architect. I catch my reflection in an angled window, relieved the transparent image is averting direct eye contact. 1,000-mile gaze unobstructed by structure, trees, or an inflated sense of self-worth, a stare that implies there is a distance there, therefore a future.
Gabe, that was a wonderful piece. I apologize for the thing with the troll, but I want to talk about this piece because this is, I really love, first of all, like how like psychologically intimate and heartfelt this piece is. But like on top of that, the careful way that you've layered the actual physical environment and your really detailed, intricate descriptions of the physical environment, of the home, of the weather, of the graves along the side of the highway, and the way all of that comes together so perfectly with the psychological state of your narrator and his life. It's so beautiful. It's wonderful, Gabe. I think this is honestly like one of my favorite pieces that you've read here.
Oh, thank you, man. It means a lot to me.
I just wanted to add in the structure of this piece and the way, like even the name of it, the containment breach, and all the references you have to like the holes and the dripping and the water just kind of seeping in, almost like a ship. You know, it reminds me very much, you know, the atmosphere of the piece where you have people like trapped inside like a space. It's very much like almost like as a space madness type of feel to it, like some Event Horizon shit or something like that. Some very like psychological like tension to it, and the way you build that with the drip, 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 that is fantastic. I really love that that sequence, and I think that adds a huge amount. And the idea of like water is like a force that's, you know, yeah, especially when you contrast that with the desert or juxtapose it with the desert, you know, it's just really powerful.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Thank you so much, Gabe. Up next is...
Oh wait, I want to quickly, while you were reading that, Gabe, someone dropped by some books that I haven't. It's funny because you guys are here. Okay.
Sweet.
Awesome. Yeah,
Man, hell yeah.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Was that Gabe's book and Gigi's book?
Yes. Obviously, everyone should, you know, buy Gabe's newest book as well. But like, by Gigi Rowland and Virgins in Reverse and The Intrusion.
Were you able to bring...
Also this one, but no, he's not here. So
you were able to bring those in there with you?
Well, actually, I actually have this with me, and
Oh, I love that book.
yeah, it's so great. It's funny because I'm like Travis in that book, but yeah. Anyway, that's all. It was cool. I love your sunglasses.
Oh, thanks.
They're fucking up. Lots of awesome glasses and sunglasses tonight. Speaking of which, Unity's up next with another pair of awesome glasses.
Woo! Wow. What a great night this has been, you guys. Thank you so much for sharing your work. It's so nice to see everybody too. I feel like we got a great cast of characters tonight. Anyway, this is a brand new essay called Streetwise. Streetwise. That was my nickname at Chicago's Best Worst Drag Show. Arbin, the show's host, chanted it when she introduced me each week. Streetwise, streetwise. The name didn't bother me. I embraced it. It was like a badge of honor. I was the weirdest girl in the lineup, and that's saying a lot. The show is at 2 a.m. every Monday at Jackhammer in Rogers Park. It attracted an eclectic bunch. The girls who signed up to perform and compete ranged from up and coming superstars to honest to goodness bums off the street, AKA me. The first week I went, I did an unfortunate dance to a Sevdaliza song. Everybody hated it. I thrashed around on the floor like a demon. The other girls made faces at me and giggled. What is she on, and where can I get some? Arbin said when I'd finished. My second number was cut from the show. It was disappointing, to say the least, but I was undeterred. I'll show them, I told myself, on the 5 a.m. bus back to Pilsen. I'll keep coming back every week until I win. And that's exactly what I did. Meanwhile, my enemies in Little Village were mobilizing against me. After my release from the psych ward, all of Antifa showed up at my door. They were kicking me out of the squat, they said. Itzy was the ringleader. All the boys stood behind her looking threatening while she rattled off a litany of complaints. Nobody felt safe around me. I'd threatened people. I invited homeless people into the squat. I was unstable, psychotic. I'd said the princess attacked me, but the princess and Pussy Baby both claimed this was a lie. I was a racist for even suggesting it, since the princess was black. She choked me out and spit in my face, I said. That didn't happen, Itzy replied. I still have the bruises, I said, pointing at my leg. Bitch, you got to go, Itzy said. She looked like a mean little circle. She said I had to leave right then. I couldn't pack my things. An Antifa representative would pack for me and bring me my items at a later date. I never saw any of my stuff again. None of the makeup or the clothes. A few weeks later, the princess was headlining a show at Berlin. In her photo on the poster, she was wearing one of my dresses. It was unmistakable. Pale pink, the one with all the straps. Everywhere I looked, I saw those posters. They were up in all the clubs and plastered across social media. The image is emblazoned in my memory. I'm still trying to forgive her. I want to forgive them all, but it's tough after what happened. Dealing with a crazy person is not easy. I'm not saying it is. Antifa did the best they could, but their best was still pretty lousy. They drugged me. They tricked me. They called the police. Calling the cops was probably the correct thing to do, but it was rich coming from them. It was certainly more humane than their first plan, which entailed holding me down and shoving benzos down my throat. I still say the princess choked me out. I can feel the spit hitting my face to this day. On the other hand, I was hallucinating pretty hard at the time. I thought her and Pussy Baby were both devils. I could see their little lizard faces, could hear their demonic cackling. So what actually happened? I couldn't say. We all have our own versions of things, stories we tell ourselves to make sense of implausible or challenging events. The truth is, I don't know what happened. I'd be lying if I said I did. I do know one thing, though. It sucked getting kicked out. I didn't have anywhere else to go. I had no money and no belongings. I slept in Harrison Park a while, behind the Museum of Mexican Art. It wasn't so bad. I liked being against the earth. I felt cradled and supported by the grass, nurtured by the cool night sky and the stars. After a few nights of this, a miracle happened. My friend Amelia gave me a key. The key belonged to a new squat. This one was right next door to Showboat, where my friends Pete and David lived. It was a 2-story house with a split foundation. The house was actually condemned, a fact I didn't know until a month or so later when the demolition crew showed up with me still inside. The floors were all crooked from the broken foundation. It was sparsely furnished, but for a brief time, it was my home. It was mine and mine alone, not an anarchist in sight. The second time I went to Jackhammer, I sang live. I did Ride by Lana Del Rey. I was nervous and hyper. At certain points, I got too excited and screamed the lyrics instead of singing. It wasn't a great performance. I didn't win a prize, but I made $8 in tips, enough for the bus back down to Pilsen and an early morning coffee and pastry besides. One of the people who tipped me looked familiar. I realized it was Nico, the drag queen I'd argued with at Berlin when visiting Chicago with Luca that winter. "Bitch, you're a drag queen," Nico had said to me then. Now, it was true. Excuse me. That happens sometimes when I talk.
When you post it on YouTube, please just send like
leave it in.
isolate it, but don't cut it out.
I'll leave
Okay.
it in and we'll see what happens. If it gets taken down, I'll edit it and put it up again.
Okay. Bitch, you're a drag queen, Nico had said to me then. Now, it was true. Well, sort of. I was really more like a disgraced former countess than a queen. I was doing the bare minimum. I didn't know how to do a full drag face. I just painted wings on my eyes like I always did, but slightly bigger. I think I performed barefoot, so as not to be seen on stage wearing sneakers. You can see why they called me streetwise. The princess was the one who told me about the show at Jackhammer. We'd been to it a couple times together. The show served as an industry after party. If there was a big event that evening, all the queens would wind up at Jackhammer afterwards. It was quite the scene. The club itself was a sprawling complex of devilish delights. It had a big front room with a nice open stage.
I'm so sorry about that. I'm sorry. Okay, I think they're all gone now.
Okay. Speaking of devilish delights, the club itself was a sprawling complex. I don't want to say it again. It had a big front room with a nice open stage and a bar. A back room housed the DJ booth, along with a second bar. This is where all the girls got ready. They closed down the back bar and the girls used it as a dressing room. They set up mirrors along the bar and did their hair and makeup there. The piece de resistance of the club was a cavernous underground lair known as the Hole. On the weekends, when it was busy, there might be hundreds of guys down there. There'd be guys lined up on their knees in the bathroom, drinking each other's piss. Sweaty guys in leather harnesses and nothing else, cruising and sucking and fucking. I never really felt comfortable in places like that. If I had been on more drugs, maybe I would have liked it. But as it was, it just felt awkward to me, like a big scary meat market. I always felt undesirable in the Hole. Nobody ever seemed to want to have sex with me. But it was probably because I was too terrified to talk to anyone. I couldn't even make eye contact, which, I'm told, is the first step, and a very necessary one, to successful cruising. But Monday nights were very different. The drag queen's extravagant femininity counterbalanced the masculine sexual energy that permeated every corner of the club. Of course, people still hooked up. The show was a popular destination for tranny chasers, men who are specifically attracted to trans women. Even I, Queen Streetwise herself, managed to attract a miniature cult following in the 3 weeks I performed at the show. I had guys who bought me drinks, guys who gave me bumps of coke in the bathroom. One guy I met there even took me out to breakfast once. His name was Steve. We went to the 24-hour Huck Finn Diner on 34th and Archer. Steve was a sweet guy. I'll always remember his kindness. By my third performance, the crowd was firmly on my side. I lip-synced to Violet by Hole. It was a whole moment. I wore my Courtney Love dress. I teased my hair out as big as it would go. I smeared red lipstick around my face and extended my winged eyeliner all the way to my hairline. Ever since getting thrown out of the squat, I'd been carrying around a chain. I wore the chain around my neck as a necklace. It was easily detachable in case I needed to use it to defend myself. During my performance, I tore the chain from my neck and used it to self-flagellate. I whipped my shoulders and my back. I fell on my knees and crawled off the stage into the crowd. I channeled that song. Courtney would have been proud. The thing that clinched my victory was when an audience member decided to make it rain. I was on my knees in front of him. My mouth practically came unhinged as I madly lip-synced the words. Suddenly, the man was showering me with singles. They flew, one after the other, from the stack he held in his hand. I probably made $40 in tips, plus the 100 from winning first prize. They determined the winner by applausometer. It wasn't even close. I snatched that show, honey. That was the night Miss Unity was born. The night after my victory, the princess showed up at my new squat. She brought Itzy and Dell and a couple others I didn't recognize. I was sleeping when they all showed up. It was midnight or later. They snuck in the rear door through the backyard. They crept into my room and woke me up. I don't know what they were trying to do, if not to intimidate and frighten me. I awoke to the sound of them screaming. They were all yelling at the same time. I don't know what they were saying. I could hear sounds, but no words. I scrambled to my feet. Fight or flight took over. First, I cowered in the corner. I gasped for breath. I didn't know what was happening. I was so scared. I thought they were going to kill me. I can't breathe, I said, clutching my throat. Yes, you can, someone said. That's when I bid farewell to flight. That's when fight took over. I lunged for the princess, swinging wildly. She lifted her arm to deflect the blow. My fist connected with something solid. I heard a horrible snapping sound. For a full breath, nobody moved. Not one of us said a word. Then the princess broke the silence. Bitch, she screamed. You broke my nail! Somehow, I'd also broken whatever strange spell had made my former friends seek me out that night. Come on, someone said. Let's get out of here. They all stormed out of the squat, knocking over furniture and smashing things on their way. The princess was the last one to leave. When she was halfway out the door, she looked back at me and smiled venomously. See you next week at Jackhammer, bitch, she hissed. Then she slammed the door. I didn't see her the next week, though. I never saw any of them ever again. They all died when the little village squat burned down. To this day, no one knows who started the blaze. Just kidding. They're all still alive. There wasn't any mysterious fire, though I won't say the thought of starting one never crossed my mind. The real reason I never saw them again was because my own little squat was torn down by developers. The demo crew showed up a few days after my triumphant jackhammer victory. I refused to leave at first. Squatters' rights, I yelled through the open window. You can guess how that turned out. After the police escorted me out, I slept in the park again for a few nights. Then I left Chicago forever. I took an Amtrak train to New York and I never looked back. I would have liked to have bested the princess in a drag contest. It would have been a showdown for the ages. Maybe I'll go back someday, just to see the look on her face when they call out my name as the winner. Outside the Pink Line station at 18th Street, there's a little plaza with a decorative garden, beautiful roses framed by a short brick wall. An old woman from the neighborhood put tomato plants in the garden too. In the summertime, thousands of cherry tomatoes grow, a free snack for any hungry traveler. The night I won Chicago's Best Worst Drag Show, I took the bus back down to Pilsen as usual. Everybody else on the bus was sleeping. I think most of them lived on the bus. I looked from face to sleeping face. Some of the people had ratty blankets. Others had covered themselves with newspapers. I thought about how lucky I was to have a roof over my head and a crisp $100 bill in my pocket. I disembarked the bus by the 18th Street station. The coffee shop in the plaza had just opened. Baristas wiped sleep from their eyes. I ordered a double espresso and paid with my 100. I went outside and sat on the wall by the garden. I admired the tomatoes and the roses in the early morning light. I reached out my hand and plucked a single tomato from its vine. I sipped my espresso and closed my eyes, savoring the rich aroma and flavor. I raised my tomato to my lips and bit the tiny fruit in half. It was perfect, ripe, succulent, and delicious. The juice ran down my chin. Tears sprang to my eyes. I was so happy right then that all I could do was cry. So happy because I'd never tasted anything so sweet.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Sorry.
No.
It's
I
like
understand.
very fresh.
I know. No, this was so, it was so funny, but so heartfelt. And tonight, really, like, a lot of people are, I don't know, a lot of the pieces tonight felt really personal and really heartfelt. And that was kind of the perfect heartstone, capstone for the evening is what I tried to say. But no, thank you so much. That was phenomenal as usual. And next up is, I think Josh just materialized while you were reading. Josh, are you with us?
Yeah, no, I was here for just before that, I was here to see Gabriel get trolled as well. So
Are you ready to get trolled, Josh? I think you're not necessarily the last one on the docket tonight, because Rudy might have a game to share, but I think you're the last reader on the docket.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'm always ready for him. Yeah, no, I was just late. I was getting back from Mother's. It was funny. We had she texted me saying, asked me if I can make it for this family dinner. And she says, will you be there? It's a big one. And I thought it was this serious thing. And she's not the clearest communicator. And then I tried to get more information. It turns out it was just that the lasagna was very large, that she made far too much lasagna, but she hadn't said what the big thing was. And because we've been going through some family stuff lately, I assumed it was not the size of lasagna.
Josh, have you considered stand-up?
I don't know. I think I'd freeze up. So just two short poems. One is part of something that was read before. I consider these B-sides because I don't think I'm going to include them in the collection, but First one's Margaritaville. The next station is Christie Station. That's what the automated subway announcement says, as I realize it's almost 2 years to the day that I was getting off at Christie Station to meet you that first time. It was a Tuesday, the year was new, fresh starts, etc., but I admit I wasn't expecting much. Based on your pictures, I'd assumed that you'd leave the bar after humoring me with a quick drink. It wouldn't be the first time. I remember this Russian girl I also met off Tinder who stayed for a single margarita at the same bar a few months prior before ditching. There's something especially humiliating about that drink choice. A margarita is a statement drink. It says you're planning on making a night of it, or at least trying. A single fucking margarita. I'm now convinced she was a sociopath. Like, who does that? Not you. You ordered top shelf tequila with soda, and after 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, we went back to your place. No matter what signs you gave, I waited for you to make the first move. Too many times I'd misread the room. A single fucking margarita. So at some point later, you tackled me to the floor and we started making out after a New Order's 586 came on the stereo. Until recently, I'd been recalling that moment incorrectly. I'd remembered the song I'd mistaken the song for Gaz Nevada's Italo disco classic, I See Love Affair. But you corrected me in one of our final text messages, since deleted. And now, 2 years later, in the future of that night, I'm pulling out of Christie Station and wishing I had my headphones and a single margarita. Then boxers. As you get older, they grow bigger, the urine spots, even after shaking off. And then the last one's flaneur. They say taking walks is good for one's mental health. Yes, the tonic of sun and air is salubrious, they say. So every day I force myself out, cut through the forest, and take the path along the ravine. I recommend evenings for walks, when the sky is sherbet and the water trickles delicately like something breakable and expensive. By the time I reach the clearing where the ravine feeds into a sewer grate, it's twilight, and I'm already feeling renewed. From here, it's only a few hundred meters to the liquor store. And that's it.
I love the punchline on that last poem, Josh. But more importantly, though, I love the first poem. Like I said about Unity's piece and Gabe's piece, tonight really is a night, I think, for people reading kind of poignant, raw, emotional shit. And that first poem by yours was so poignant and so effective. And yeah, it's self-deprecating and funny in the way your stuff always is. But that, I don't know, that first one felt like a little slice of Josh Sherman's soul, and I appreciate that.
Thanks. Yeah, margarita drenched soul. Seriously though, I mean, it was really a vibe. Like, I don't mean to sound like an incel or something. I don't expect anybody to stay any longer, but I mean, that decision, there's so much to unpack because maybe she didn't, maybe she was planning for a night, and then between ordering the margarita and her finishing the margarita, something was said. Maybe it wasn't how I looked. She already saw me when she ordered the margarita. So anyways, there's a lot to unpack. And thanks. And someone said the naturalist. Yeah, one thing, I actually like some of the nature lines in it. And the whole thing was I wanted it to seem believable, like it was just going to be a nature poem. It couldn't be, but yeah.
Joshua, I also, sorry, I called you Joshua, my bad. Josh, I love that the girl in the poem did like the classic heiress move of tackling someone to the floor and making out with them. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, you know that. You know what? That poem is not about anybody who really exists. I'm gonna just not comment further on that hypothetical person. But yeah, it was. It got things done. Like I said, I wasn't gonna, because I'm not good with first moves. I just always assume. I get invited to somebody's place. I mean, that's a sign, right? But I don't like to assume. People change their minds, like the margarita woman.
A sign of what? What is it a sign of? William, don't mute yourself. I want to hear you laugh.
That it's okay to.
Oh yeah, it's like we're down to 5.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, just
I'm slow. I'm recovering my brain. Okay.
Yeah, I was recovering. Now I'm. Yeah. Well, there we go. Thank you. Yeah. Well.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, we'll just
as usual. Thank you so much. So I had said that was the last piece of the night, but we got a DM from Durbin who asked if he could read a short piece. Are you with us, Durbin? You can read a short piece.
I am. This is short and pretty out of step, I think, with the general pitch of the evening, but I will go forward anyway. Let's see here. FTW. Neighbors like good neighbors, like friendly fascists and benevolent xenophobes, like flying flags, like showing off their debt in the various shapes of newness. Something bright, uplifting. Neighbors like neighbors that speak, not too little, not too much, that speak using flags and signs, clarifying which side they're on. How right they are, which doctor gives good prescription, and how the moral high ground leads to their cul-de-sac. Neighbors like neighbors that look like them, dressed up in their jobs and football and beer and block party and block watch and seasonal decorations put up promptly and taken down with equal diligence and timeliness. Bear with me. Where are the trolls? Who doesn't? Who doesn't? The neighbors don't. Then I shouldn't. Who doesn't? I don't. The neighbors shouldn't, and I won't. Neighbors like neighbors who don't climb too high. Because status shouldn't come easy. And competition is furious. Like, don't turn your back. Like, I deserved this more than that bum. Like, some people have all the luck. Like, I'll die if no one is around to admire my flag and sign and spouse, to admire my mower and blower and lawn free of gopher. A neighborhood in theory, a neighborhood only in name. Neighborly neighbor, right up to your easements, but not beyond. Then all bets are off. Neighbors like consistency, like tried and true. 50 stars and 2 or 3 cars. I clean my gun. I clean my gutters. I clean the garage. Like, what did we ever do without all this stuff? Question mark. Brand names, and oak frames, like dependable servants in golf carts, patrolling, looking and watching, and staring and acting tough. High polished railing to pen them in to contain their concerns. A neighborhood only in theory. You get what you get what you earn. You get what you turn. Print trailers and overstuffed strollers. You get what you earn. You get what you burn. A neighborhood in theory, a neighborhood in name only.
Durbin, you killed it as usual. And that was incisive. It was nasty. It was sinister. I loved it. Thank you so much.
That
for
didn't
sharing that.
suck, to tell you the truth.
Huh?
I'm all disorganized.
No, you still killed it though. You still killed it. And the sound of turning pages, I don't know, made it feel that much more sinister. Something about like that noise actually, I think, added to the performance. Derek says it was great, creepy, and I 100% agree. Thank you so much for sharing, Durbin.
You're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Dan is up next. And I think, Dan, you're the actual last reading of the night.
This is short. They're like a flash fic. I'll post a link.
Dan, can I share this link or?
Oh, do you want me to give it to you or should I post it?
I mean, you can post it wherever you want, but can I share it on Twitter?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Okay, first one is called Split Mind Disease Part 2. An old mirror rimmed with a floral design in the bathroom of my suite is my best friend. I say, "Good morning" to the mirror. "Good morning," the mirror says. "Don't forget to brush your teeth or you'll look like a crackhead. The medication makes your saliva very acidic." "Thanks," I say. The mirror says, "You should shave. A beard makes you look homeless and you have a home." I brush my teeth. The mirror starts to bend and contort when I don't respond. The mirror bursts into flames. The mirror turns into 539 mice. "Hey," I say. The mirror returns to normal. The mirror says hi. So desperately, I want the mirror to go away. Whenever I cover it with a towel, the mirror wiggles until the towel falls off. Whenever I put the mirror on the side of the road during garbage day, it finds its way back into the bathroom. Whenever I smash it into a million pieces, then sweep it into a paper bag and throw it into the ocean, it is there waiting for me when I wake up the next day. So desperately, I want to live my life without a reflection, without an appearance to maintain. Soon, I will glue pictures of animals to the mirror, bears and wolves, ravens and crows. In the morning, I will look at the animals who don't have to look in the mirror. Soon, I will glue pictures of planets without water to the mirror. Red rocks, dust, and gas. They have no water to reflect on. Soon I will glue pictures of my childhood to the mirror, back when a mirror was something to make funny faces in, something you used to look at the temporary tattoos your cousin put on your forehead. A mirror was something fun, a novelty, writing naughty words backwards with a felt marker and holding them up to the mirror and laughing your head off. Now the mirror holds all the disgust of every other person in the world. Now the mirror laughs its head off at you. This one's called Split Mind Disease Part 7. The now and the past on earth, alas, my friends, that is what I find most unendurable, and I should not know how to live if I were not also a seer of what must come. A seer, a willer, a creator, a future himself, and a bridge to the future. And alas, also, as it were, a cripple at this bridge. Just Google it, I said, staring down 30 feet at the water. When the world floods, I'll be the happiest, drowning. My malaise was justified. We're all doomed, and I was the smartest one. The one who sat in Andrew Marvell's garden. Take your laurels and shove them up your ass. Did you know they make weed suppositories now? I said, staring down 25 feet at the water. All the money I wasted on cigarettes and weed and Coca-Cola, I should have been saving up to buy a boat, I said, staring down 22 feet at the water. As the water came up, I started wishing I made more friends, wishing I got laid more, wishing I spent more time in forests barefoot. I saw the water rise in dreams, sleeping on an air mattress in the middle of the ocean, dehydrated and sunburned. I did nothing. I whispered it when I should have been yelling at Twitter. Soothsayer signal boost, I said, staring down 15 feet at the water. I imagine the world on their mechanical keyboards, click-clacking out prayers and last-minute declarations of love. Even with wet feet, there would still be deniers. Eventually, all bridges won't be bridges anymore. They will have no one to walk across them, no one to jump from them. Instead, fish will use their water shadows to hide from bigger fish. The bridges of the world will be reefs. There's no good place to write a last goodbye, chiseled into concrete, and eventually it'll disappear. Water erodes everything. Water washes. Water will make clean.
Wow. Fucking wow. First of all, like, how perfect that this should be the piece that ends the night. We started on the bridge with the tribute to Berryman, and we end back on the bridge, with another piece about jumping off. But no, just another really heartfelt, emotional, poignant piece. Two very heartfelt, emotional, poignant pieces. For something about this night has me suddenly very emotional, and I'm not sure why. But Dan, that was a wonderful pair of pieces, and I think a very kind of fitting way to end the evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Rudy, you had a game that you wanted to demo? No, actually, you changed it in the last minute here. Okay.
Oh yeah, I actually changed it several minutes ago, but yeah. So I'm probably just gonna read a piece that I wrote for Misery Tourism here. I don't think I really had time to demo the game tonight. I'll do it another night.
Okay.
So okay, you already linked it. Okay. So this one, I guess is another kind of personal piece, like I guess most of mine are, but this one kind of, I don't know. It's just I'd written this a long time ago, and I was really frustrated with a lot of the community stuff and particularly the game design community, I guess, and it kind of deals with some of that bullshit. So yeah, I'll just go ahead with it. Literal haloperidol zombie. Hold the door, because it's literally falling off, and you're gonna watch me and the Nappy Boys run a train on my own dignity, a wireless self-flagellation, with death last in line holding his ghost penis. Sans shame. You need not follow, but you must witness. In my latest wet dream, I imagine the sense of brick and mortar RPG shops I've never been in. After a good rain, a real rain, came to wash away all the filth. It stunk like my pillow. Sweat, food, abilified saliva. Ah, the sweet smell of science. The chemical straitjacket. The fist of the North Star, knowing you're touched and waiting for your head to explode. Every day I'm more walking, looking, searching, for a network that doesn't exist yet, maybe ever, to give me that sweet, strong connection, to help me upload my child pornography without someone saying, or telling me that no pedophile nigger will like my shots of hairless pink pussy, my mise-en-scene, because the AVI metadata says ripped by Vulture 001 instead of ripped by a black dude. Endless misery. Wonderful. Walking, avoiding sheetrock, table legs, cold metal, the discourse, electronic junk, sharp glass, mice. Know your environment. If breaking the dishes is what Bilbo Baggins hates, he would throw hands with me. I would throw him into the next room, follow through the hobbit-shaped hole, flog him, and when Daddy comes running, say nothing. Just role-playing. Too fucking angry for furniture. Make the darkies stand. Does your establishment have any tables? Why, no. I'm actually clicking retweet, pit and stomach from the comfort of my bed, laptop propped up by an erection, a lust for powerful violence. I want to shoot something. And in moments of silence, rip some firefighter XOXO. I'm with myself only, stalking prey again. Elusive stuff like confidence, a real life, empathy. Please, just drop the comment. In the best self-harm scenario where LOL is on my desktop and I'm feeling like Mia, goal weight 250 pounds, I might just pound my dick for 45 minutes. The hammer does most of the work. I just swing it. After I spill my guts, cheese calzone into the toilet or on it, a rare portion of my life where I decide what the tide will bring. Meaning in every snowflake, says the blue bird, whom lets the barcodes and check marks Shahrazad me with 280 characters, as long as 279 of them are something other than white men that trigger fight or flight. Just one more night up late listening what a man asterisk does, and granting one more stay of execution for one more 24-hour news cycle, and hey, a shooting while the grass and a tire turn shades of exhausting. That feel when you glut on Zach-S drama, upchuck promotional tweets that are kind of a fuck you and an anagram of your first D&D character's backstory kind of way, then wash your mouth out with fundamentalist tirades on Sharia law. Everybody doing what Dylan talked about. Oh look, a rock, and another, and another. Internet scary hours. Dick Cheney sneer on my face while I question my gender, ski mask wielding enhanced interrogation techniques. A ticking time bomb saying, where were you on the night of November 21st, 1984? Doubt me. I love that. Head underwater. Tried to build me an echo chamber, but being a black identity fascist is hard. Stand around a whole lot outside a cop station shouting, fuck with me, but also, I love militarized policing while wearing a burqa. I wish. Aw, shucky ducky dance jigaboo all around that battle station that goes from warp to a smear of pixels and blood at the speed of a closed fist. Martin Sheen's hotel room jig powered by the apocalypse. Now do it again 364 more times. The way is always the same. Ever since the days of IPX sleepovers and jaggy edge blonde princes departed some Monday night, and e-peens destined for jelking increased in size by orders of magnitude. Somewhere a Web 2.0 genie is out of his bottle, out of his pants, and granting the subliminal wishes of puppy dog-nosed thoughts, case studies for the new physiognomy. 1 ad click, 2 Google searches, and 3 Amazon purchases at a time. Now only mandarins can stop him. That glow in the eyes, the one seen on the face of a Santa Maria deckhand, that enchanted type of feeling, is just a cool logo now, or some anime fag staring into a screen with one hand on the grim trigger, one fucking slip, Edge Wizard, and you're more canceled than Firefly. Call it redistribution of magic. And that's it.
I was wrong. That was the perfect piece to end the night on. And I'm, you know, I've read that piece a few times before, and I hadn't thought about it in terms of Berryman before, but like, that's a piece of confessional poetry, right? And it's a piece of confessional poetry that uses like the slipperiness of identity, just like Berryman did, and is just as like insular and like a product of one person's mind, and just as like universally captivating, right, at the same time as Berryman's work is. And it's fucking good, man. And it's the perfect, like, brutal, honest, heartfelt piece to end a brutal, honest, heartfelt night. So yeah, thank you, man.
Well, thanks.
Oh, but actually, one thing though, I have to ask you. I need you to explain to people who might not have gotten it how
Oh,
many
no.
League of Legends references are in that piece. You don't have to list
Okay.
every one, but you have
Okay,
to.
yeah. So a lot of the lines in the piece are quotes from the champions in League of Legends. So when you play the game, you have this champion that you play and you kill shit with them. And I just like when you click around, you're moving your mouse around or whatever, they'll be saying things like while they shoot somebody or whatever. You know, one of the characters, Tristana, is like a little goblin or some shit. And she says, like, I want to shoot something, you know, and she fires her gun. So, you know, a lot of the things are like that. But I thought the perfect line to end on was one by Silas, who's basically this communist mage or mage, anti-mage, basically. Because I felt that's the perfect encapsulation of the new internet is communistic, anti-magic.
Redistribution of magic.
Redistribution of the magic of the internet. There you go. So yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you so much, man. And thank you everyone. There's not time. We kind of sort of did an open mic, kind of sort of, but there's not really much time to do much else. So I'm going to end it there. Thank you to everyone who came and read as usual. It was wonderful. We'll do this again next Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific. We tweet out the link to the reading from our Twitter account at Misery Tourism. Anyone's welcome to come. Anyone's welcome to watch. Anyone is welcome to share their work. So yeah, once again, rest in peace. John Berryman, you're a missed motherfucker, even though I suppose he'd be dead now 50 years later anyway.
Final F's in the chat for John.
F's in the chat for John Berryman. All right. Thank you, everyone. That's it for tonight.